New Apple gear? Who got what? What do they think? And where does the iPad Pro go from here? This is MacVoices. MacVoices is sponsored by Upstart, fair and fast personal loans. Go to upstart.com/MacVoices and find out how Upstart can lower your monthly payments. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices Live, Tuesday night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. So we do it every Tuesday night. You should know that by now. You should also know that we are live in our MacVoices TV channel on YouTube, and you should be in our chat room with us. But if you're not, well, next week, right? Next week. And Jeff, we had somebody helping us out in the chat.
Excellent.
Thank you, Webb.
You have no idea just how much that warms my heart. Well done.
Oh, man. Okay, so we're going to go around the table and find out who's here, and then we'll get into tonight's topic. So I'm going to reverse things a little bit and go from the bottom of my screen because they keep confusing me every week. Kelly Guimont is first up. Kelly, good to have you as always.
It's lovely to be here. I'm glad to talk about new stuff.
Yeah, new stuff is what we have to talk about tonight. Jeff Gamet is here, and he's fun whether he's talking about new stuff or old stuff.
Or underpants.
Or underpants, but which could also be new or old. Yeah, it's awesome to be here.
I'd prefer if they're new, but we'll leave that alone. Jim Ray is here. Jim, great to have you. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. We get to talk about old stuff tonight, right?
Well, we can talk old stuff or compare the old stuff to new stuff.
Wait, aren't we here to discuss iPods?
I thought we were here to talk about Chuck.
Oh, well, no, it's not. That was Jay Miller, who soon will be ejected from the call and banned from MacVoices Live.
No.
Jay, you're my favorite.
I was just going to say under there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Jay, you're my favorite. Don't tell the others, especially Andrew. Oh, hi, Andrew.
What
was that?
Andrew.
He's
nothing, Andrew.
So Andrew gets in under the wire. Andrew, great to have you. You snuck in.
Okay, good.
And
okay, good.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those nights.
You're
folks.
off to a great start, Chucky baby.
Man. David Ginsburg is here as well. David, thank you for being here. Really appreciate it.
Oh, great. Glad to be here and with my new stuff.
Ooh. Well, so that's got to be the first question. Who got new stuff?
I have new stuff. Chuck, what did you get?
Apple stuff, right?
Okay. Yes, new Apple stuff. Yeah.
iPad.
New iPad.
Ooh.
Okay. I have a new iPad as well. And let's see. So I got an iPad. David, I think you just held up a new iPad and a new Apple TV remote.
I did get the remote too.
Do you have just the remote or the whole thing?
Just the remote.
Okay.
Have you
I
had
already
any
have
trouble finding your
HD.
remote?
When I ordered it online, it was going to ship like mid-June, but when I went into the store, when I went online to order it to pick it up at the store, it was there. So I got it on release day.
Nice.
Very nice. Very nice. Kelly, you raised your hand.
Yes. I have a new iPad Pro.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
My original, I had the last Lightning Pro. So it's like 4 years old. And I do audio editing on mine. I have a podcast that I do edit. And when I do that, I do it all 100% iOS. And my old iPad was feeling it. So, yeah, believe it or not, mere mortal Apple hardware couldn't keep up with one of my podcasts. So I got a new Pro.
Very nice. Very nice. Andrew, did you pick up anything? You weren't here for the hand raising, I don't think.
That's actually, thanks, Kelly. That's actually kind of why I didn't get an iPad. I am actually iPad mostly in my workflow, but for me, my 2018 iPad just still works fine. I think that there's still a lot of power that iPadOS and all these apps aren't using. And I haven't experienced any kind of slowdown or something like that that would make me want to buy a new one.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of people are real happy with theirs. So I'm not surprised that there are people that are like, no, I'm good.
Yeah. Jay, did I see you waving your hands like a madman?
Yes, but it has nothing to do with new stuff.
But you're muted.
I mean, I've got AirTags, but I called Apple and I said, "Hey, where's my new stuff?" And they said, "It's at the store. Go get it." And when I did, they said, "Oh, that's a lot of money." And then I said, "Oh, it's not free." Okay, and then I left. Sorry, the story didn't have a happy ending. I'm on my M. Night Shyamalan kick now.
One Shyamalan.
Stay tuned for Jay and I's new podcast, Being an Apple Fan on a Budget.
Man, Jim, is it safe to say that you didn't pick up anything either?
I did not pick any new Apple gear. I did get one new thing that I really like, but it's not from Apple.
Well, okay.
I'm listening.
Since it's new gear night, sure.
It's from Monster, and it's called a Boomerang. And it's like a headphone alternative. It goes around your neck. And I think it does bone conduction. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. Does it press like on your cheekbones here, or
no,
just around your neck?
It just wraps around your collar. So and it's got two things that come around to the front. And I just happened to see it on Amazon. I had no idea there was such a thing, and I decided I wanted it, and I love it. It's
This
really
looks fancy.
Are you looking at it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Although apparently
Ooh.
Bose and Sony make ones that are triple the price.
Wow. Yeah, this looks like it's about $50.
No, it's about 90.
90.
Oh, I saw two places where it was like one was 45 and one was 49. So maybe somebody had a deal.
But there's a
Maybe.
couple of them. There's like an older one, and then there's one that's like waterproof and stuff.
Oh, okay.
This looks like the Minotaur. He took his
Wow.
horns and just like broke them off and wrapped them around your neck. Sorry, I'm in an aggressive mood today, I guess.
Well, bone conduction stuff is super cool though. Like if you can do it, it's super, like it's really great.
I'm not sure
Mr.
if it
Kelly
does
has a
that
pair
or
for
if it's
hiking that
just
do
that
that.
it's close to your,
It-
so, but it,
Oh, yeah.
it's very, I AirPods don't really work for me. They hurt my ear and they fall out.
Mhm.
So, and I have been wearing a Bose cans, but that's, looks really odd and it's kind of inconvenient. And this is like, it's really nice. It just sort of sits on there. It doesn't look like much. It's not going to jump out to people on the other side of the room like, what the hell is on that guy's head?
Mhm.
And it's very comfortable. And I find, it's really great for just going around the house and like folding laundry or doing the dishes and go around the house and, whatever your podcast, which is what I'm usually listening to, just follows me around. And then, it's just like it's in my head without, me having to do anything, which, AirPods would do, but they just don't. They don't do it
if
for
they don't
me.
work. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Jim, I'm trying to scroll through here to see, but and I haven't found it yet. So I'll just ask: does this have a microphone? I mean, can you take calls with this, or
Yes,
is this strictly?
I have, and it works. And the people on the other end are like, "Yeah, you sound great."
That's awesome.
That is interesting. That really is.
Welcome to
I have-
Monster Observer.
What's that?
Welcome to Monster Observer, the
Yeah.
talk of the monster community.
Yeah. Yeah. We kind of got away from the Apple stuff, but this is intriguing. Kelly, I have some aftershocks.
Yes.
Bone conductions, and
Mhm.
I really like them. But let's just be honest. You do sacrifice some fidelity. I
Yes.
mean, there's no question about it. You can hear the music, you can hear the podcasts, no problem. But the fidelity is not there. with as it would be with AirPods or headphones. And I'm intrigued by this because this has the potential to give you some of that fidelity back, but still have it wide open for you to hear what's going on around you.
Yeah, that's the other thing that's nice. It's like it doesn't feel like you've got something on. You're still like, if my wife says something, I can hear her. If I'm walking, I'm not cut off from everything. So, the flip side, if you are someplace noisy, it's not blocking.
But also thank you, Chuck, for stealing my derail, because I did want to derail for a minute that aftershocks are super great. Depending on your application. If you are a person like Jim that like your ears and AirPods have a known incompatibility, this is a nice way to get to hear, but also still hear like what's happening around you, which is a thing that I really like. Is it the greatest experience? No. But the person I know of the people that I know, the person who's the biggest fan of them is Mr. Kelly, who has a pair of AfterShokz Air and really likes them for hiking. Because if your choices are listening to your feet crunch through the miles and absolutely nothing else, or you can maybe listen to a book or some music to be motivating if you're on a longer, section hike or something. And when you do that, you can still hear around you. I mean, you're never going to hear the cougar behind you, but you can hear if somebody's coming up behind you or if something else is happening. Which is a thing that has happened. And so he really likes them for that, because it's better to get to hear a little bit of something and, motivate a little bit or whatever. And particularly I know people who are more athletically inclined than I am who very much enjoy them for that reason. You don't have to worry about them falling out.
Where is he walking with cougars behind him?
On the Pacific Crest,
Jay.
On the Pacific Crest Trail.
Apparently.
Yeah, the Pacific Crest Trail. There are big cats that are not friendly on many sections of that trail. Yes.
Oh, okay. I don't even know what to say that. We're going to move on. I want to welcome Mike Schmitz. Mike snuck in here with us. Mike, great to have you. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely. I'm glad that I was able to make it work. Thanks for having me.
This is kind of what I want Mac Voices to be. It's great if you can be here to start the show, but if not, if you have a late in or an early out, come on in, share some thoughts, and then head out. It's fine. Mike, before we get to you, I'm sort of polling everybody as to what new hardware they got. Jeff, did you pick up anything?
I did not, and I blame COVID, because the new iPad Pro is incredibly compelling to me, but it's compelling to me if I'm not going to be at home all the time. And since there's nowhere to go, my current iPad Pro is just fine.
That's what I said about AirTags is I can't lose anything anywhere interesting. It's downstairs or it's upstairs. I don't need an AirTag to tell me what floor it's on.
Yeah, but that may be enough. Mike, how about you? Any new goodies over the weekend or last week?
I did not get anything. I will say I had money budgeted, set aside for the new iPad. And if the 11-inch iPad had that fancy screen, I probably would have gotten that. However, I have my 2018 iPad Pro right here, which the only difference between this and the 2020 was that one additional graphics core. And so when I saw the benchmarks of the new one versus the 2021, I'm like, well, this is really powerful, but it's not going to let me do anything extra with it. I mean, I use my iPad actually all the time for sketch notes and good notes, and I edit podcasts and Fairwrite, but I just don't have any sort of useful application of all of that power. It's great that it's got an M1. I'm a big fan of the M1. I've got my Mac Mini here on my desk, and that's the most powerful computer I've ever had for this type of stuff that I do. But the software has to catch up to the hardware before I would invest that much on a new iPad, I think.
And that's what I did was I'm just sort of betting big on Dub in a couple of weeks and that iPadOS is really going to start to take advantage of what we've got. That's
I want to come back to that point. I do want to mention, though, before we leave Jim's monster thing, that in the Aftershocks discussion, that Webb in the chat room says he uses his Aftershocks headset with a boom mic at work for mainly telephone and WebEx as well. So, there you go. He acknowledges he does give up some fidelity, but I can see how that would be a very nice use. And now I've got to go back and revisit my Aftershocks for that very use, Webb. Thank you. Mike, that's a comment. I've seen a number of reviews about that. And Kelly, I'm kind of with you. The software may not be there, but that's okay. I'd rather buy up the power scale and let the software come to me than buy low on the power scale and have things that don't perform as well. And so
I'm just not sure the software is going to get there. I mean, I said the same thing in 2018, 2019, and 2020.
Well, keep in mind, okay, all of this comes with a giant asterisk, everything I'm about to say. And I say that because for many years, I have run a home for wayward crackpot theories. And my crackpot theory is that part of the reason we split, that iPadOS became a story unto itself, a thing on its own, is because they want to be able to, like, I feel like Apple was the last group of people that took the iPad seriously, because everybody who had one did. People like you, Mike, people like Andrew, people like Tichy over at Mac Stories, like people who are living their lives out of their iPads and, hooked a keyboard up to it immediately, use it for all these things and bump up against these limitations and just find ways around them. I feel like Apple was the last group of people to come to like, wow, the iPad is a really serious computing device. We should do something with that. And they finally did. And so if you're going to put a desktop class processor in this machine, we talked about it this morning on Daily Observations, because Brian and I talked about the iPad through the ages and what we've had over the last 11 years of iPad life. And one of the things I said was, I think they split iPadOS off because they knew the M1, they knew that the Apple Silicon was coming, that they were going to be able to put into it. And Brian said that he thinks it might be the opposite. They finally took it seriously and realized that the iPad is not in fact a phone. And so they should have different operating systems that have different functionality that do different things. And so when they did that, then they realized we have this desktop class processor we can put in a mobile device. We should do that. And so that's how we got M1 iPads. And so either way, I don't care. What I really care about is that in a couple weeks, when Tim comes out, when Tim Cook has entered the chat and has something really exciting to show us today, that what it is how the new improved iPadOS is going to blow the doors off anything we've seen before. Yeah. That's what I want. And that's what I'm betting on, literally putting my money where my mouth is by picking up that new iPad. However, if I'd had a 2018 iPad like you do, Mike, I probably would have passed. Like you, I probably would have. But mine's 4 or 5 years old. And so I was feeling it. But otherwise, if I'd had something newer, I probably wouldn't have. But since I had the opportunity, I went for it. I
feel like it's a day late and a dollar short, though. I mean, I just interviewed the creator of Jelly Cuts, which is, to me, this is what an iPad is for. Hey, if you are a developer and you like writing text and turning it into actionable shortcuts, this is a 17-year-old that is making an app that does this kind of amazing stuff. And the first question that I asked him was, so how much of this was done on your iPad? And he just said, I bought an iPad to test it, but to be honest, I haven't really been able to do much on my iPad, so I just did it all on my MacBook. And I feel like that was such an amazing story that could have been told at a WWDC level event of, here's someone in high school, here's the next generation of Apple developers that are going to, create the next apps for the next 10, 20 years. And it could have been done on an iPad if Apple would have been thinking about it from day one like that, but I don't think that they have. And honestly, he just told me even if they add all this stuff, I don't see myself getting away from my MacBook now, because it's just been the thing that I've always gone to at 17 years old. And I have to apologize to Jim, because a week ago I was saying, kids these days, they're not going to think about their MacBooks. You know, they're all that iOS lifestyle. And I mean, I swallowed my pride on that one. I was like, well, I guess I was wrong, but I think it doesn't necessarily say much about my thoughts as much as it does about like Apple. There was a great opportunity here, and the fact that it takes all of the missed opportunities for Apple to finally come around and do something. Hey, we want a pro Apple device. Oh, we made this iMac here. No, we want a brand new Mac Pro. Oh, okay, I guess we'll work on that too. Hey, we want a tablet. You don't need a tablet. Okay, let's make a tablet. We don't want a stylus, or we do want a stylus. Oh, you don't want it. No one wants to use a stylus. Why does Apple have to learn from them being wrong to go back and do something?
Yeah, and I feel like it's such an indictment of the iPad that this dude made something amazing, but it took him a laptop to do it. Like, why can't you build an iPad app on an iPad? This is the question I've had for a long time. Not because I have any sort of brilliant iPad idea. If I did, like, I could probably convince somebody I know to do it for me. But I'm not. I want to be able to do that. And somebody who buys an iPad and falls in love with it should be able to use that iPad to build more things they love for it. And I'm really hoping that, you know, not because I don't like people, but because I do like people, I really hope that there's some sort of Xcode kind of situation that we get for the iPad now.
Any sort of pro app, really.
Right? Like, take it seriously.
I edit podcasts in Ferrite. I edit videos in LumaFusion. Why doesn't Apple not bring over Logic and Final Cut for this incredible hardware?
And Ferrite is why I bought my Pro. That's why, because I use Ferrite all the time and I adore it. And I have tried and miserably failed in spectacular fashion to edit with all kinds of stuff on my Mac. And I really thought there was going to become a point where I was going to have to just suck it up and buy, not Logic. Is that what it is? Like the really expensive audio one that's like crazy amounts of money. Yes. I felt like I was going to have to buy that. And like, I'm just going to have to learn it and it's going to be terrible. And like, it goes against everything I am, but I'm going to have to do it because I can't do it in anything else. And then Zod bless Jason Snell over at The Incomparable went, I edit everything in Ferrite. Check it out. And I'm like, this works and it's a thing and I can do it. And like, it seems like a language I speak. And so like, I've been on my iPad ever since. And so
I love you guys, but you're all making me crazy. You're just, you make me crazy because
we win. You guys, we win.
Well, the thing is, it doesn't matter when you get something, it's never soon enough. It doesn't matter what you've got in your hands, it's never good enough.
I didn't get it, so therefore I can complain, right?
Yeah.
But you know, it's like, look, I hear what you're saying, and there's some valid points in there in pieces, but at the end of the day, you know, Jim can probably comment better on this than I can, but because certainly LumaFusion sort of disproves my point, because they're doing some amazing things and have done it with the iPads up to now. But I also think, you know, the only reason you resent not being able to do something on an iPad is because you want to. You can do it perfectly well on a desktop, a desktop or a laptop. But everybody wants to push the iPad someplace that it wasn't ready to go, or at least Apple wasn't ready to take it there yet. And so, you know, just calm down.
I'll play devil's advocate. Although,
go, Jim.
You know, they're charging over $2,000 for these high-end iPads. So that's why, you know, if somebody buys a $300 iPad, they're not going to complain that they can't do high-end tasks on it. But why would you buy an over $2,000 iPad? And then, you know, that's why people are saying that sort of thing. You know, you want to charge me that much money. I mean, personally, I love my iPad. I have no desire to make apps on it. Even if you could, I doubt if I would, just like this kid said. You know, there's just way too much productivity involved in windowed, you know, apps and being able to, you know, really easily use multiple apps together and use pointing device, although you could use pointing device and a big screen. So, you know, I don't think they're going to do Xcode. I don't want them to do Xcode. But that is, the reason why I think that people, and I think rightly so, they're saying, look, this machine has the same processor as the highest end Mac now, basically. It's priced like a high end Mac. I need to mortgage one of my kids for it. So, basically, like, I'm in the position, I have an iPad Pro and I've got a Mac, and, I go back and forth. But that's expensive, and a lot of people are like, no, I've got to pick one device, and I want that one device to do everything, because I can't afford to buy two devices.
I made probably the worst buying decision in history when I bought a maxed out 16-inch MacBook Pro in February of last year. And that $3,000 computer, I could do everything I need to do on there, but I can do it faster on my 2018 iPad. So the hardware is not the limitation here. And if you want me to fork over another $2,000 for this computer that you're trying to sell me in a tablet format with the same processor as the one on my desk, like, why? What can I do with it that I can't do somewhere else? And I can't, it's not even parallel because those apps aren't there.
This edition of MacVoices is supported by Upstart, fast and fair personal loans. Go to upstart.com/MacVoices and find out how Upstart can lower your monthly payments. When was the last time you applied for a loan? There was probably lots of paperwork, lots of questions, a focus on your credit score, and lots of waiting for a rate that was far from what you expected. Enter Upstart. With Upstart, everything is done online. Upstart uses an AI model that looks at more than just your credit score. 69% of Upstart-powered loans are instantly approved, and checking your rate doesn't impact your credit score. If approved, 99% of personal loan funds are sent within 1 business day after signing. Even better, there's no prepayment penalty for paying off an Upstart loan early. Upstart is the fast and easy way to pay off your debt with a personal loan, and again, all online. Find out how Upstart can lower your monthly payments today when you go to upstart.com/MacVoices. That's upstart.com/MacVoices. Don't forget to use our URL to let them know we sent you. Loan amounts will be determined based on your credit, income, and certain other information provided in your loan applications. Go to upstart.com/MacVoices. Thanks to Upstart for their support of MacVoices. Okay, so two things. First of all, to both you and Jim, I get it, but you guys all want what you want, but and you act like you're entitled to be able to buy it for the price you want. And so if the iPad Pro doesn't suit you, don't buy the iPad Pro. Now, Mike, I want to ask you though, you say you can do it faster on your iPad than on your desktop or on your MacBook Pro. Can you give us an idea of what kind of things we're talking about?
Yeah, any sort of video editing, the audio editing in Ferrite is actually super snappy. With Logic, I used to edit like podcasts, and you had to. I did the Jason Snell method, the strip silence, and then you've got all the different little pieces, and you try to grab all those and move them on anything but an M1, and it just forces your system to beach ball.
We were talking about this in Slack. Last week, I brought this up in Slack. Like, I bought ScreenFlow because I was like, I don't need Final Cut to do screencasts. And even with that, I got the lighter software with the maxed out MacBook Pro. You cannot buy a more expensive MacBook Pro than what I have in the 16-inch form factor. Yeah. And it's still beach balled because I zoomed in too far. Yep. And I mean, it's like it zoomed into like in seconds. It wasn't like, hey, I need to, cut 3 microseconds off of this. It was like, no, cut off 2 seconds. And then all of a sudden my entire system crashes. Yeah. And so my issue, it's not really much of an issue. Like, if you can throw in the faster hardware, that's great. Like, go ahead and do it. But for 3 years in a row, I've kind of felt like, okay, the hardware is good. Now give me something else that I can do with this monster tablet that I already have.
Yeah.
And that's where I see a lot of other people complaining about, well, are they focused on the software? Because, yeah, we got iPadOS. We really haven't gotten anything since then. And to Kelly's point, I hope that this WWDC, we get a whole bunch of iPadOS stuff, because otherwise, like, what was the point?
Why would
Why don't we break this thing off and then just let it let it sit? Because
Yeah.
Tim Cook uses an iPad, and this we've checked all of his boxes.
So now we're done, right?
The
We're
most
good. We can go
performant
home.
graphs.
Well,
Yeah.
from the developer side, iPadOS is iOS.
Right.
They just stuck a name on it. There's no, and sorry, there's not going to be any revolution in iPadOS in 2 weeks. That's not happening. That's just not the way development works.
I just wanted to catch up with iOS because at least I can, throw widgets on and put them on any screen instead of just one.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah,
a great point.
I don't expect a revolution, but I would like a 2.0. I would like to see some sort of obvious evidence that we're taking this seriously. We gave you desktop. We have now officially given you desktop class hardware, not like you could have that. Like this could be a desktop machine. Like we could make a MacBook Air with the same processor and it would be fine. But like we've now given you officially the exact same processor that is in that we have now rolled out in our most popular line of laptops. So we have a lot of faith in it. And now we've put it in a tablet and now, go. Like I'm just waiting for that piece of it to be like, here. Now you can go and do the thing.
On the developer side, processors don't matter anymore. That's, you check the box in Xcode. What kind of machine code do you want to put out? And, so the fact that it's got that processor, that doesn't enable anything revolutionary on the software side. And, the operating systems are so complicated. We're talking about, iPad OS, it's still Next OS underneath, the hood. You're still, somebody came from the 90s on Next OS, they would, see a lot of stuff that they were familiar with. It moves glacially because there's just, so much.
Jeff, I want you in here. Which side are you on? Are you on my side or their side?
No. Okay, here's the problem.
I want to note that Jeff Gamet will be running for office. I will be his campaign manager. With answers like that, he's got to win.
This new government that we're going to start, Chuck, this is going to be epic. I promise to be a benevolent dictator.
It should not be epic. It should not be epic. We'll have to change our rates.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
This not epic so that we don't have to change our rates.
Legally distinct.
Anyhow.
This legally distinct dictatorship.
Yes. Okay. So we have a problem here. And more accurately, Apple has a problem here. And this problem is all their own doing. They have created a situation where we are frustrated by the hardware, by the software, or lack thereof, or by other people's desire or near demands to have more out of what they're paying from Apple. This is all on Apple. This is all their fault. They rolled out the iPad with the same philosophy that they had with the Apple Watch, as far as I can tell, which is let's put it out there and see what people do, and then we'll figure out how to leverage that. And so then to jump way back in tonight's episode, Jay, you were talking about how Apple is essentially being reactionary to user requests. Like, we don't need an Apple Pencil, you don't need a stylus, and then giving us one, and all these other features. Aside from the Apple Pencil, I think it's all been a marketing spin. Tell us we don't need something so that we buy what they have today. And then when they give us the thing that they added in that we've been clamoring for, now they tell us why we actually need it. And I think Apple Pencil really was the exception to that rule. At some point, they were like, "Oh, wait a second! Actually, we really do need to make something like this." So we have Apple in a position where once they figured out what they wanted to do with the iPad, they started down the path. They laid out their long-term plan, and despite all the times that Apple has told us or led us to believe that they're nimble, that they act like a startup, that they can change up something on a dime. No, this is a monolith now. And when they get a process going for something with a product, it's going to take time to shift that to something else. So the frustration we're seeing today is because they can't be nimble. And as they've realized, the long-term roadmap they set out for iPad is not the road that they want to be on, at least completely. Well, it's going to take time to get there. Jim, I think you are correct. And there will be a lot of disappointed and pissed off people at WWDC because we're not going to get this revolutionary operating system announcement and all the pro apps. But I think over time, we'll get these things and we'll be frustrated all along the way, either because we want them now or because we see that there are already devices out there that do what we want. So why would you buy this other thing and then complain about it? And Apple is stuck in the middle, and it's all their own fault.
Jeff, a couple of things there. And David, I want to come to you next, but I'm not sure I completely agree with this idea that they hold things back or just throw them out there and wait to see what happens and what we do with them.
You're really not being a very good manager for me right now.
Well, but I'm strengthening you by causing you to argue with me.
You guys, there's strife in the Gamet campaign.
Front page news.
Breaking.
I think that let's go back. Let's go way, way back in time to when the iPad was first introduced. Okay.
And didn't have a camera. Yes.
And didn't have a camera. And, there was a lot of, I remember distinctly doing some shows about what if this is just an iPhone with a big screen and no phone capabilities? Would it be useful? And the answer pretty much was yes. And the device has evolved since then. To Kelly's point, it got a camera. Then it started getting really, really good cameras. And then it started getting more power and apps came along. And, Apple changed their position on that if you want to see it that way. And the device has evolved. The pointing thing, I'm not sure that it would have been as revolutionary if you had required a stylus at that point. Because we all were, I don't know about you, but I kept losing my Palm styluses. So,
I have a lot of those, multiples in my bag all the time.
Exactly. And so, I think that if we start to look at these devices as evolving, the phone, the Mac, the phone, the iPad, the watch, they started out as one thing, they slowly evolve into something else as the technology arrives and as we start to use them just a little bit differently. So,
I don't think evolution works this way, though, Chuck. If you look at, you have 3 products that Apple sells that you can spec up to over $2,000, and they all have the best of one thing, instead of there just being one device that has all of the bests in one. If I want the best camera, I have to go to my iPhone. Technically, I can't even go to this iPhone. I got to go to the Pro model. If I want the best front-facing camera, I have to go to the iPad that has center stage and all that stuff built in. And if I want the largest screen format, I have to go to the iMac. So ultimately, in evolution's sake, the best product is buy all of them. Spend $10,000 a year on all of the Apple products, and only then you have the best product, which is really like an amalgam of the individual pieces. Kelly and I were talking before the show about other stuff, and one of the things that she mentioned was the best camera that you have is the one on you. That's the problem. At this point, we've invested all the money. We have all the cameras. We have all the toys. And instead of saying, I have the best tool for the job, we just say, well, I have the best tool for the job until I get to this point. And then I got to switch over to the other best tool for the job, which is this. And then I have to switch over to the other best tool for the job just to share it. And that's, I think that's what people are saying, is that we don't, if the iPad is it, the iPad is it. Honestly, if the iPad was a glorified e-reader, make the best e-reader. That's perfectly fine. Apple could probably sell a $500 e-reader and people would still buy it. I mean, they sold the best $300 speaker system, and I mean, apparently, and not enough people bought that. But hey, you swing and you miss sometimes. But honestly, I can't continue to have that conversation of Apple is making the best devices. It's like, no, Apple is making the best part of a device and then throwing it into something that already exists until something else comes in. And then the floor yields its time so David can have a chance to speak.
David, I want to respond to that just one way, and then I promise you're up. Okay. I hear what you're saying, Jay. I think you're being a geek because you want the best of everything everywhere. Okay. And there has to be some business consideration in there for, okay, we can't just make the best product now and then we're done. So there has to be some rolling. But I would submit to you that the best truck or the best vehicle for one job is an F-150, but the best vehicle to get me from here to there fastest is a Ferrari. You can't have an F-150 in a Ferrari. You just can't. They are different devices for different things. You can fake it a little bit because you can carry some luggage in the Ferrari and you can carry some luggage in the F-150. Both will get you there, but they're just totally different experiences. So,
Chuck,
David,
I have to jump in for a second.
Oh. Sorry, David.
The car versus truck analogy, which Steve Jobs gave us, this is on Apple again, I think falls down now because we're not talking about is it a truck versus a car for a lot of these things. We're talking about this is the horsepower we have. And we've put the same thing in two different vehicles. And the only difference is the chassis. And so with the way we've had miniaturization and the way the power has all come together, why at this point does it need to be two distinct things? Why does it need to be a pickup truck or a Ferrari? Why can't it be a transformer, robots in disguise? And it switches to the device we need when we need that specific feature.
Jeff wants a folding iPhone.
That's really all this comes down to.
Okay, so no, David's next. I'm
David.
putting him off.
I'm sorry I jumped in front of you, David.
Yeah.
That's okay. No, I just kind of want to spin this a little differently. I wanted to go back to Mike talked about earlier about the iPad Pro 11. I had the 2018 model, and I still have it behind me here, and have to trade it in. So I waited. I decided not to upgrade to the 2020, which for obvious reasons there wasn't there any reason to upgrade to that model. But now I've got the 2021 with the M1 processor. So I've had it probably. I've been doing some comparison testing for the last 3 or 4 days now since I've had it, and I do notice some differences in the performance. I mean, and yes, we looked at the Geekbench, and of course I had to put Geekbench on both iPads and look at the numbers. And yeah, the M1 is really a lot more snappier than the 2018 model was. The fact of the matter is, I like the 11-inch. A lot of other people want the 12.9-inch. I just can't justify the budget of spending like Jim said, $2,000 for an iPad it's a lot of investment for what you want to do with it. What do I do with it? Well, I'm trying to do a lot of the stuff like you guys have talked about, fair right, editing not podcasts, LumaFusion, watching videos, but the bottom line is the fact of what I think is the M1 processor was what really attracted me to finally give in and decide to go with it. And I'm not disappointed. I think this is a pretty amazing iPad at this point with the performance that it has, and I'm fine waiting out to see what happens with the iPadOS 15 and where they go as far as how these applications are going to work. But it'll get there. Our friend Warren also talked about earlier. He posted on Facebook about using Sidecar, using it as an extra display. That's a nice convenience, being able to do that. But I looked at the comparison between 2018 and 2021 models, looking at the screens, and it's not a 12.9 inch, and no question about that with the XDR display, but it definitely is something that I see a pretty big difference in the image, and I'm pleased that I got it, and I think what everybody else should think that too, thinking about what if the 11 inch is going to be something that's going to be good enough for you, but I think it is for me anyway.
Webb in the chat room supports my point. He says you can't have very much luggage in a Ferrari. Personal experience. Thank you, Webb. Thank you, Webb. You just made up for the underpants comment later.
That's earlier. Not true, Chuck. What, a terabyte of space on my iPad now? I can pack all the junk in there I want.
That's a big trunk.
I stay with 256. That was good.
So, Andrew, you chimed in there just a little bit, but I want your thoughts on this, because if I remember correctly, you say that your iPad is your primary device.
Yeah, I was trying to jump in earlier just to say, I think this sounds like what I was trying to ask in the last time I was on the show, in that, now that all of these devices, except for the iPhone, of course, do have the same chip, I know that all of these operating systems, they have some similarities, but they still do have differences. But shouldn't, an app that is capable of running on a MacBook still be able to run on at the same power level on an iPad? And I think what Jim was saying earlier is, there are some things in some instances where you can just click a button and be able to, have the same app run on all these systems. It's just that we haven't seen either Apple or these developers, I think, take advantage of that power. My question, I think, overall was, I'm not saying there should be some kind of one OS to rule them all, but with multiple devices running in M1, shouldn't the biggest difference just be the UI?
You just mentioned it's up to the developers to implement this. A few weeks ago, we had this conversation of Apple's greatest achievements and things that have happened in the last 20 years. And I made the statement, I don't think it's Apple that should be having the list of achievements. It's the developers, because so many times we hear of great tools being made, Apple saying, hey, I like that. And then all of a sudden now it's absorbed into the Apple ecosystem. And the problem that I see with that is now I feel like that's almost what Apple has evolved to in this point. They wait for the pundits to complain. They wait for a developer or a developer group like Workflow to come out and say, hey, we've built this revolutionary thing. And they go, we're the richest company in the world. Why don't we just buy them?
Take that. Thanks.
It's an efficient way
I agree
to
with you.
get new features.
Mm-hmm.
At least they bought them and didn't steal the idea.
At least they didn't kick them out of the App Store, because that's what we were all thinking.
Yeah. I think I think what it is that it's frustrating because people like us know what this hardware is capable of. We know what we can do with it, right? Especially now. We know most people, in the circles that all of us run in, I assume there's a significant number of people who have an M1 machine of some flavor. Before you get to the iPad, they have an M1 Mac of some kind, whatever it may be. And those people know what that machine can do. I've watched that machine compress audio. I've watched it compress video. I've watched it transcode video. I've done all kinds of crazy stuff with my M1 to find out, what's the deal. Mike's over there smirking I know what you're talking about. And we know what you can do with that. So if you're going to give me, unlimited cosmic power, itty bitty living space, then I feel like we know what this will do. So let us do that. That's all I'm asking for. I'm not asking for Apple to create miracles. I'm not asking for them to do something impossible. I'm asking for them to recognize the potential that they've given us with this. I don't think Apple recognized the potential when they originally released the iPad. If you can still go back and hear the 2 Talkcast archives. When we talked about the iPad, all I talked about on it was the potential that it had to be the kind of device for so many different people in so many different ways. It was so unbelievably exciting what kind of avenues they were opening up for mobile development, for mobile utilization, for people to have this in-between device. It's more than a phone, but less than a computer. And there's really a very wide lane for that. And so now that we know that you've given me the power of a desktop in this mobile device, that's the thing. I know what it can do. So give me the opportunity to do it. That's all I'm asking for, is a known quantity, not an unknown quantity. Not you gave me this, let it do something awesome that's vague and I'm not going to quantify it so I can still complain when Apple doesn't let me have my way. That's not what I'm talking about at all. I'm talking about very specifically, I know what kind of horsepower I have in the computer that I have. And I just bought another computer that's exactly the same insides with a slightly different outside. Let me make it do something awesome the way I can do with what I have.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just as an example, the Thunderbolt port, right? We don't know what we can use that for, but I have my M1 Mac Mini, which cost me $700. And I have an OWC Thunderbolt dock, which replicates that Thunderbolt 4 port. And with this single computer, I have 2 displays, 2 audio interfaces, a Stream Deck, a couple DSLRs, and it all just works. But if you look at the iPad website, it says you can use this Thunderbolt port for fast external storage. You can hook it up to a Pro Display XDR, and you can use it with a dock. Well, what does that mean? Does it mean I can use my Thunderbolt dock with an iPad? Probably not, because when we had the USB-C port, all we could use it for was external storage. I could not hook up my audio device and record a podcast on an iPad, which still boggles my mind. I was never able to do that.
I'm endlessly frustrated by that.
Yeah. Okay, so Mike, I hear you, and you know what? I will take these arguments, and I will pretty much agree with you 12 months from now. Okay, but the M1 chip just came out, and somehow I end up defending Apple because I feel like I see this in non-tech areas where somebody rolls something out and says, yes, this is going to be great. Do you start with the software or the hardware? Where you got to get the hardware out there before the software, because if you write the software, you've got no return coming in at all for it. And so I give them time to bring the stuff out. Now we have this. But again, Mike, you might have been the smartest person here because you didn't spend the money on the iPad Pro because it doesn't do what you want it to do yet. Yet is the key phrase here.
Look at Mike sitting over there being right. Look at him.
As you can tell, this discussion went right off the rails early and in directions that we never anticipated, and that's what made it so much fun. In the next edition of MacVoices, we continue talking about the iPad Pro and what Apple has done to it, and where it could go, where it should go, where the panel members want to see it go. That's next time on MacVoices, and I definitely hope you'll join us because we have a whole lot more fun coming. Until then, and as always, I'm Chuck Joyner. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.